We don't usually talk about trauma and business together in the same sentence, but I think that we need to. And that's what we're doing here together today. I'm going to share with you the number one sign that your trauma may be impacting your business and your bottom line. And I'm going to share with you steps that you can take to start to work with that skillfully and compassionately, if that's the case for you. And I would argue that it's the case for all of us in different ways and different degrees at different times. So let's dive in. Welcome to Herself, a space for women to have deep conversations about the intersection between spiritual entrepreneurship and fulfilling your potential, so you can become the woman you truly are in every area of your life. After being in business for over 2 decades, I've learned, as you likely have too, that as you grow your business grows you in unexpected, often challenging, yet miraculous ways. Here, we'll talk about how to get out of your own way so you can grow a business that's abundant and sustainable while allowing you to be a force for good in the world. I'll give you simple, actionable strategies as well as wisdom and inspiration to help you root into your wholeness, lead from your values, and work in ways that feel deeply aligned so you can bring your true self into the world through your business and in every area of your life. I want to enter into today's conversation with a lot of tenderness and care, and also with curiosity. Curiosity around if there are things that maybe you haven't been seeing or haven't been seeing through the particular lens that I'm going to share with you today. And I also want to start with a reminder that at the level of our soul, or which in IFS we call our self, nothing is missing. All is whole and all is always well. At the human level, we do experience lack and hurts. And we're not here to talk about transcending our human experience. We're here to move in and through. So this is about healing, which requires seeing, witnessing, holding, and inviting back the parts of ourselves that feel that lack, that feel that hurt, back into the wholeness that we are. And with that orientation in place, I want to share why this topic has become important to me. And it's come more to the forefront of my awareness as I am exploring some new territory in my work and in my life. And this trauma, new layers of trauma can come up, or does come up, not can, it does. It's part of the process when we are taking leaps or doing things that we haven't done before. And as I'm preparing to bring my new book into the world, and as I've been transitioning my work over the past several months, I have definitely been encountering layers of myself that I've never encountered before. And I consider myself to be a really self-aware person who's done a huge amount of personal development, inner healing work. But this is a lifelong journey, right? And I'm always up for seeing things that I've never seen before. And there are new chunks, we could say, because it kind of comes in a new package of things for us to be with when we are stepping into something new, when we're taking a risk. And more people are becoming trauma informed and understanding just how much trauma impacts us at every level. And by trauma, we're talking about trauma with a lowercase t, things like bullying, maybe in grade school, criticism or harshness from a sibling when you were young, emotional neglect, and uppercase trauma, uppercase T, like sexual, physical, emotional abuse, some sort of an accident or an illness, a loss. But a wound becomes trauma when we face hardships without sufficient support. And 2 people can experience the same things. 2 people can experience an accident, and one has support and one doesn't. And then that accident impacts them in different ways. As Gabor Mate says, trauma isn't what happens to us, it's kind of what we do with what happens to us. So it's what what happens after the thing or after the incidents or the period of hardship. And physiologically, trauma impacts us through the stress response in the body. And the stress response is firing most of the time, and this impacts our hormones, our digestion, our immune system. Psychologically, we can experience anxiety, depression, anger, fear, fear of connection, fear of taking risks, fear of being seen, fear of intimacy. This can lead us to isolation. But overall, trauma makes us feel unsafe inside ourselves, unsafe in the world. And this causes a distortion in our essence or our soul, the way that our essential self interacts with the world. And sometimes trauma completely eclipses our essential self. But even when it does, our self is still there, it's still here. And remember, self lacks nothing. It has all the resources and wisdom we need to heal and to thrive, both in work and in life. It holds the blueprint for our optimal unfolding, just like an acorn holds the pattern for a mature oak tree. And if self lacks nothing, that means that it also holds the safety, the abundance, the nurturance that we're most longing for, that we're most needing, that we're most seeking outside of ourselves. So when we occlude that, when our wounds occlude our essential self, we lose access to those qualities. But remember, those qualities aren't lost. They're still here inside of us. We need to find ways to access them. So what does this have to do with our businesses? What does trauma have to do with our work in the world? I found first through my own journey as an entrepreneur and then supporting other women on their journeys as entrepreneurs that there are a few lenses that we need to be looking at our businesses through. And at different times, we need to emphasize maybe one or two of these. But at all times, each of these views really needs to be taken into consideration because we are working at a really integrated, holistic place here. I've found that nearly all standard business guidance and strategy omits two of the three of these. And when that happens, we get a very limited view and we can often feel stuck and frustrated and like we're doing something wrong. So let's map out what these three lenses are. The first lens is essential business principles. And by essential business principles, I'm talking about those really tried and true building blocks that every business needs and that I make sure to have in my business. I make sure to continually be refining these, and I make sure to support my clients with building out each of these things. And these include, I'm not going to name all of them, but some examples so you get the idea: your vision, your values, a really detailed understanding of your ideal client, your marketing plan, a way of tracking metrics and troubleshooting, things like this. The second lens is alignment with your soul's purpose and the divine plan for your life. So we want to start from this level so that we make sure that we're not laying an external structure on top of you that's not in sync with who you're here to be and what you're here to do. So in the example of the acorn and the oak tree, we don't want to overlay the imprint for an aspen tree on top of an acorn, because an acorn is not meant to become an aspen tree, it's meant to become an oak tree. So the same is true for us. We want the outer to be an expression and extension of the inner. We want to draw on the otherworldly power and resources that are inside of us in our essential self. We want to have our businesses be guided by our inner wisdom, not the other voices in our heads, not the expectations or agendas of other people. The third lens that we want to look at is to understand the ways that your wounds and trauma are impacting the previous two things, impacting the implementations of business building blocks that you're putting in place, and impacting the way that your self is able to express itself in the world. So it's this third lens that I want to explore more in depth here with you today. So we can ask, what are some signs that this is going on for you? And again, this happens for all of us in different ways and different degrees at different times, but especially when you are taking a risk or doing something new, there's going to be a whole slew of things for you to work through. And since we don't usually talk about trauma and business together, let me give you an example from my personal life that might be more relatable. I used to have a pattern in my personal life of getting into relationships with unavailable men. And as I got older, especially as I got into my 30s, and this pattern repeated enough times for me to even see that it was a pattern, and I was able to realize, okay, so the common denominator in all these situations is me. So what am I doing? What's happening inside of me that is causing this pattern to repeat? Even though I followed sound dating and relationship principles, things like vetting future partners with friends and family, taking time to get to know someone before committing, similar to putting sound business strategies in place, I'd still fall into this pattern. And even though I did various kinds of therapy, read books to understand why this was happening, did work to heal the childhood wounds that I was aware of was causing this pattern, did all those things, but the pattern still persisted. I wasn't able to get to the source of it within me. And because the pattern persisted, that was the sign that I still hadn't gotten to the root. I still hadn't cleared that pattern from my field. And that was a sign that trauma was still running inside of me and thus impacting my ability to meet a partner who was actually safe and available. And that trauma distorted my experience of my own wholeness. It caused me to feel lack and to look outside of myself for something in someone else. And in doing that, it kept perpetuating that feeling of lack and disappointment in intimate relationships. I was not coming from my wholeness. So then how could I meet someone who was also in their wholeness? Right? Like attracts like. And that frustration led me to ultimately do the deep healing work that I found available for me in internal family systems to get to the root of those wounds, to resolve them. And then the sign that I resolved them was then I was able to meet a partner from my wholeness rather than my pain, a partner who was not like the previous pattern, broke the pattern. So in your business, what are the signs? And if in my personal life, the signs were pain, frustration, disappointment of getting into relationships with the wrong kind of men, in your business, it could look like persistent patterns of not enoughness, not enough time, not enough money, not enough clients, not enough opportunities, not enough support, not enough connection, not enough creative spark, or not enough of anything that you deeply desire. Our usual approach, which is the first lens that I shared, is the one that's taught in most business coaching, and that's kind of to double down on strategies, to work harder. So tying this back to the example from my personal life, that for me would have been to study more about dating, maybe to work with a dating coach, to try dating more people, which of course would never solve the problem. It would just waste my time and energy and likely exacerbate the problem because that pattern within me was not shifted and it was still attracting that same pattern externally. So when we follow the standard approach of just do the steps, work it harder if it's not working, it leaves us feeling like there's something wrong with us, or like we're lazy, we're stupid, we're unlucky, we're not cut out for success, it's not possible for us. But when we expand our view and look at what's actually happening through the other two lenses that I'm sharing here, we start to see a much truer and much more nuanced reality. First, we can look to see if what we're doing is actually in alignment with our soul's purpose and with the soul of our business. Again, so we're not laying the imprint of a aspen tree on top of an acorn. Then there's this piece that we're looking at more closely here today, and that is to see if there are some layers of past trauma, past wounds that are distorting the expression of your soul and the soul of your business in your life. This could be trauma from your personal life, trauma from your lineage or family of origin. As women, we can have a lot of this as it relates to our work in the world. Trauma from our culture or the political and social environment that we grew up in. And if we again remember that our souls and the souls of our businesses don't lack anything, they hold within them everything that we and our work needs to flourish to its fullest expression, we can see that if trauma is blocking that, then it's like a kink in a garden hose and it's just not going to flow. But all that we need to do to get that to flow again is to work out the kink. Again, there's nothing faulty in you. There's nothing in you that says you can't do what you're here to do or to be who you're here to be. It's like that power is in you, like the acorn. So how can we remove the impediments to that? And this is why even the best business strategy won't work if you haven't cultivated the capacity to be the woman who holds the fullness of your vision and the capacity to bring it to its full fruition. And this requires being a loving steward, a loving parent, a loving leader to all of your inner selves. So if you have parts of you that don't feel like you're enough, that don't trust yourself or your life, that don't trust success is possible for you, you're not going to have a stable base within yourself and your life to be able to receive the things that you're calling in because at a fundamental level, you don't feel safe. This is also why you can see one person thriving with a certain way of doing business, and maybe you can learn from them, you can emulate them, and you try to do it that way, but then it doesn't work for you. And business, like life, isn't one size fits all. Same as in life, you can look at what someone else is doing, how they're living their life, and if you do those exact same things, you won't have the same life as them because we're all different. We all have these unique imprints. This is why we need to be constantly looking at what we're doing through these three lenses and working with each of them simultaneously, different degrees at different times. We need the sound business strategies. We need to connect with our inner wisdom, and we need to heal the wounds within us that prevent us from receiving and holding what we are wanting to create. Another common example of this is when someone wins the lottery and they get all this money, millions and millions of dollars, and then not too long after that, they spend all the money and find themselves back where they started from, usually in debt, not having any resources. Why is this? That's because when this money came in, they didn't heal the parts of themselves that couldn't take in that level of abundance. They didn't develop that capacity. So even when more external resources were present, they still wound back up at their initial set point because that is what felt safe to their system. As you're looking at tactical strategies to grow your business, to grow, and that's usually grow upwards, serving more people, making more money, having a bigger reach, we also want to keep an eye on looking inwards and moving down and into the core of your being to connect with your depths and the parts of you that don't feel safe with those growth strategies, that are really uncomfortable with you stretching outside of your set point, outside of your comfort zone. So if you're caught in these cycles of not enoughness, just whatever that looks like for you, there's nothing wrong with you. You didn't do anything wrong. You're not a lost cause. Things are not hopeless. Just like when I kept getting caught in relationships with the wrong kind of men. It's frustrating, I know. But those repeated patterns are signs from your depths that there are some layers within you that are in need of your love and care and attention. This brings us back to how we started this conversation. Bring curiosity to your experience. Then bring a lot of compassion and care. This is tender territory. These are usually old wounds that we're talking about here. Young parts of yourself, holding these limiting views, holding these realities that don't feel safe within them. And remember, there's no need to compare yourself to anyone else. I know that it's tempting, but truly, it's completely inaccurate to do that. There's more to business than strategy alone. There's all this hidden material within each of us that ultimately has a tremendous impact on how things do or do not play out. This is why we need both. Throughout our journeys, we need the inner and the outer together. It is possible to achieve the results that you desire because those desires are coming from yourself, from your soul, which means they're intrinsic to who you are. They are inside the acorn of you. They are wired into you by nature, by the cosmos. So what we need to do when we are stretching into new territory, rather than just plowing forward and working harder and beating ourselves up for not being where we want to be, to lovingly take time to be with those old hurts, reminding all parts of you that they're loved, that they're seen, that they're deeply supported by you now and always, as things are, and as you step into unknown territory. Also, let them know that it's safe for them to flourish and to thrive, even and especially if it wasn't safe for them to do that in the past. Help them to know that you're not in that time and place anymore. You're not with those people anymore. That you're in current time. Help them to come into current time and let them know that you'll be here with them every step of the way. From there, it's time to put the strategies in place to fulfill your deepest desires. But the two need to go together, the inner and the outer, and this is when the magic happens. This is when your deepest power flows out from inside of you into the world. This is when the acorn starts to grow into the oak tree. And watch out when it does, right? It's literally a force of nature. But this doesn't happen overnight. It takes care, it takes time, it takes patience, it takes trusting your process. But the fulfillment that you experience as a result of doing this will be beyond worth it. And if you want this step-by-step support in healing these past hurts, that is what my new book, Handbook for the Heartbroken, A Woman's Path from Devastation to Rebirth, is all about. And it's now available for pre-orders. I'm really happy to share. And it draws on internal family systems and different wisdom traditions that I've come into contact with over the past 25 years. And in the pages of this book, I lead you through the 3 distinct phases of heartbreak: devastation, transformation, and rebirth. And I share stories of serial heartbreaks that I experienced between 2016 and 2020 that impacted every area of my life and my work. And I also share stories of some of my students and clients as well. We all have heartbreaks that still need tending to and that are impacting our personal and professional lives, even if they happened decades ago. It's never too late to heal them. They're still impacting you, as we talked about here today. And when you do heal them, you'll experience also what we're talking about today: less distortions in your field and more flow of your true essence toward the fulfillment of your deepest desires. So pre-orders for this book are now available. And when you order the book in advance, you'll not only be helping me to spread this message to the women who need it, but you'll also receive up to $500 in additional resources. So to pre-order your copy, you can head to handbookfortheheartbroken.com. That's handbookfortheheartbroken.com. Whatever painful patterns you're caught in, to whatever degree, remember that these are part of the human and the entrepreneurial journey. They're normal. They're normal, okay? And when you can see them as this, you can see them as signs. And you can put power back into your hands as a sovereign woman and soul to heal what's standing in the way of you being the woman you're here to be and of doing the work that you're born to do. And it's in healing these layers, moving through these obstacles, that we mature, that we grow, that we evolve, that we become truly wise. So it's worth it. It's worth it. Keep going. I believe in you. You've got this. Thank you for joining me today. And remember, change doesn't come from listening alone. I invite you to commit to taking one small or large, courageous action after today's conversation. One step you can take, if you haven't already, is to sign up for my free mini course, 3 Lies Holding Successful Women Back that keep you overwhelmed, stuck, and doubting yourself, and how to break free so you can embody your potential starting now. You can find that over at my website, sarahavaughnstover.com. That's my full name, sarahavaughnstover.com. And if you found this podcast valuable, please share it with the women in your world. Also, I'd be very grateful if you leave a review. It helps others find resources like this, and I'd love to hear what's coming alive for you after listening today. Above all, keep going, and never forget the unique offerings you and your true self bring to the world. Until next time, I'm sending you my heartfelt support.